Hey guys, what's going on? Laying back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Father Christmas is Back. Father Christmas is Back is a British Christmas comedy that tells the story of many characters, all of whom belong to the same family. The Christmas Hope family is brought back together for the holidays by four sisters for a good old-fashioned reunion at the family mansion. The reunion takes a turn, however, when the father of the sisters, who's been absent for nearly 3 decades, is invited from America to attend the occasion, and this results in a series of awkward hijinks and long-buried family secrets being uncovered as the family tries to make it through the holidays together. The sheer number of big-name actors present in it makes you believe that you're about to watch a quality movie. All of the characters are introduced in a charming 1970s sitcom-like manner, complete with smiling portraits and a nostalgic soundtrack. This turns out to be a facade, however, as it quickly becomes apparent how soulless and terrible the movie really is. Not since The Misadventures of Eddie and Coke Man and The Kissing Booth 3 have I had to review a movie so painful to sit through that I actually had to take multiple minute breaks in between scenes because I just couldn't believe the stupidity that was unfolding in front of me. There is a lot of characters in this movie, so I'm just going to dive in and talk about as many as I can without going overboard. Caroline is considered the main character out of all of them, being the host for the reunion, along with her own family that she has with her husband Peter. I would say Caroline is the most normal of all the people in her family, at least in the beginning. She doesn't have any exaggerated flair or personality that makes her unbearable to deal with, unlike everyone else around her. The downside to this is that this makes her character quite boring. And once the movie starts to ramp up in silliness, even her character starts to suffer from it. The subplot with her kid's nativity play performance is interesting, but it's barely developed. It gets lost in all the other narrative nonsense after she starts making these stupid, ear-grating noises every time something remotely annoying or inconvenient happens, and it was agonizing to put up with. And that's just the warm-up to it all. Caroline's sisters are even worse. There's Joanna, a vapid, self-obsessed model of sorts who has less maturity than Caroline's own children. She throws a bad attitude to anyone around her, and she seems to always have rock music playing wherever she goes, as if the movie is trying desperately to make her out to be a bad girl. There's a notable plot device involved with her character towards the end, but all this does is create unnecessary drama for everyone involved. Then there's Vicky, who has absolutely nothing noteworthy going for her other than that she likes to have sex with lots of guys, which the movie really loves to show and talk about. There is a romance and a plot point that comes up with her later on, but both of them are rushed and do nothing to save her character. And finally, there's Paulina, a socially awkward woman who has been obsessively writing a PhD thesis for literal decades on the Beatles. The reasoning for writing this paper beyond just her love for the band is never explained. She also has a romance with a woman in this movie, I guess, but there's no development for it all. She literally glances at a woman once at a bar, and then she appears with her at the end of the movie. Ordinarily, I would feel bad about calling a movie stupid because art is supposed to be subjective, but that would be considered kindness compared to the sisterhood that I witnessed throughout this mess. Family relationships can be complicated, but there were times when watching this that I thought I was watching a prison documentary. Every single one of the sisters was just so damn miserable. They all have long-standing beef with each other, which is fine to a point because conflict can make things interesting, but in this movie's case it mostly amounts to shouting matches over stupid things like being able to pick an activity they want to do at the Christmas market. This is the kind of thing that children argue over, not full-grown adults who are supposed to know better. And what's even worse is that the adults are rude toward the kids that are in the movie. There's a scene where Caroline's kids make decorations out of recyclable materials and hang them on the tree. They're not masterpieces by any means, but they are creative enough to be ornaments. Joanna and the family matriarch Elizabeth are unreasonably rude to the kids for making these decorations, to a point that it could almost be considered cruelty. For a movie that's supposed to be celebrating Christmas, there's not a lot of joy to be found in it. And that's basically what can be summarized for most of the comedy at large. It comes across more as mean-spirited than it does it actually being funny. I kept getting a headache from the number of times that characters were constantly screaming at and arguing with each other. Other times, the comedy is just plain bad jokes, a good portion of which are sexual to an absurdly high degree. Literally, the first scene of the movie is a Christmas tree falling on Caroline and her husband telling her to stop shagging the tree. Characters also make a sexual Virgin Mary joke connected to the kids' rendition of the nativity scene twice. I'm not sure who thought it was a good idea to connect sexual innuendo to an innocent children's play multiple times in a row, especially when it's senior characters that are making those connections, but someone in the film crew really needed a wake-up slap. Speaking of slap, there's plenty of slapstick thrown around too. Some of the stupid scenarios involved include Joanna and her boyfriend Felix getting scared of a rat, which is actually a guinea pig, people using cow turds as bingo markers, no, I'm not joking, and characters popping in and out of scenes with cartoon sound effects in Looney Tunes fashion. Seriously, what the hell was up with that? In between all of these ridiculous attempts at being funny, the movie also tries to push a more serious side of the narrative with the family patriarch James Christmas, who's played by Kelsey Grammer. Aside from the fact that he's an American playing a Brit and doesn't attempt to change his accent at all, the movie's attempts to provide a worthwhile dramatic angle with him is among the most hilarious I've ever seen. He disappeared from the family for 27 years for an unknown reason that remains vague up until the last 10 minutes or so of the story. Anytime characters question why he left, he starts crying and giving long, wordy, metaphorical answers to try and give off some sort of meaning behind his actions, when really it's just pathetic. Long-lost relatives coming back into a family is not a concept that's unheard of, and given the right amount of time to properly dive into the subject, it could have been pulled off in this movie, but instead it's too interested in telling jokes to take itself seriously for even a moment, and when it finally does settle down, its attempts to hook the audience with its drama are wholly undeserved. Pretty much the only thing I liked about this movie was James's partner Jackie. Her character was the only source of positive energy throughout the story, and her lines always cracked me up, especially when they were related to her activist-like personality. It still astounds me that the filmmakers behind this movie were able to attract so much talent to it. It's got big names like Kelsey Grammer, who I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth Hurley, Tallulah Riley, even John Cleese of all people is involved in this as James's brother, and I gotta say, this is such a waste of his talent. He mostly just lounges around in a chair and makes a few wisecracks at people, especially James. There's also this weird romance going on between him and Elizabeth, and it just feels wrong how it plays out. There's an obvious history between the two that makes sense later on as details unfold, but man was it ever uncomfortable. It's apparent that most of the budget for this movie went hiring toward all of the big name actors for it. All of the sets have this cheap look to them that reminded me of a Hallmark Channel movie. Even when carols were being sung, it didn't give off a Christmas vibe at all, not a fun one at least. And when it's all said and done, the movie left me feeling the same way as the characters did when they started. I felt angry, sad, and irritated over the time I had wasted watching this. Not once did I experience the joy of Christmas at any point when watching it, and for a movie with Christmas plastered all over it, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Overall, Father Christmas is Back is an epic failure of a Christmas movie that insults its audience's intelligence and doesn't do anything to promote a positive holiday message. I cannot in good conscience recommend this movie to anyone unless they want to test their endurance. The general idea of watching a Christmas movie should be to promote holiday cheer and celebrate togetherness with family and friends, and this movie encourages the exact opposite. There are some good concepts behind it, but concepts alone are not enough to salvage a movie. Its humor is poor, its drama is laughable, and its characters are among the most poorly developed I've seen in a movie this year. I feel confident and justified when I say that this is among the worst Christmas movies of all time. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Father Christmas is Back. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American historical drama, Passing. Bye bye!